Hey, what's up? This is Andy from Resonate Surfboards and iSurf Tribe. And today we're doing this second part of the video I did about a month ago, where we did a bobby quad review and an upscale version that I made for a client. And I was talking in that video, if you've watched that video, you'll remember what I said about having to do I was gonna do a follow-up once I made myself a board, a version of this board. So if you haven't seen that video, go back. We'll put a link in the notes down below so you can see the first video. But so I finally had the time to make myself a version of this board, the bobby quad. So this is the bobby quad, and then this is my version of it with some changes. So the first video I talked about some changes I was gonna make to try to make it a little bit better, or try to make it better. But first of all, I wanted to start with doing a little better review than from the last video about this board, because I really enjoyed this board a lot, and I'm gonna keep it in my quiver and still ride it for certain days. But as I said in the video before, I bought this as the first board I've bought in 30 years, because I've been making boards for 30 years. And yeah, I had a lot of fun on it. But as I mentioned in the video, it wasn't the best board for small little grovelly waves, but it really is a good all-around board. That's what I want to say about this board. Definitely give it its last review is the Almeric Bobby Quad is a great all-around board. I feel like if you're going to travel with a board, it'd be a great all-arounder if you had one board to travel with, because it works good in everything really. Like I said, it wasn't ideal for groveling waves. It looks like a groveler, but it actually, the better the wave gets, the better this board works, and it can actually really perform in an overhead to almost double overhead wave pretty good, which is very impressive, you know. So it's a great all-around board. So I highly recommend this board if you're looking to get an Almeric board that's a good all-arounder. And I wanted to say that one thing I didn't say in the last video is about the materials, because I actually only had the option to buy this in this surf shop as a polyester board. So this is polyester foam, polyester resin. Because I'm an epoxy guy. I've been making epoxy boards this whole 30 years I've been making boards. And this was like, you know, that was the one thing. I just was like, hey, I need to try out a polyester board too. This is how they sell this board, as a stock board. But my recommendation is, if you buy this board and you want it mainly for small waves, you should get the EPS version. They have the Spine Tech is what it is. The Almeric Spine Tech is their epoxy version with the carbon strip put into the board. Looks like, I wish I could have gotten this board in that. I would have bought it 2 inches shorter. Since this was polyester, I got the 5.6 because I knew it has less flotation. So I would have bought the 5.4 if it was EPS Spine Tech version. So that's what I would definitely recommend. If you get this board and you're like a polyester surfer, you only like to ride polyester boards, definitely go up a couple inches. And if you're gonna buy the epoxy version, Spine Tech, go 2 inches shorter. So yeah, I just wanted to give that final review on this, that it's a great board. I didn't want to be there a misconception on that last video that I didn't like the board. In some ways it was a great board and I had a lot of fun on it. I'm actually gonna keep this board for like overhead days, barreling days at my reef out here, and beach break barrel days, because I really felt it worked really good on steep hollow waves. And it's nice to ride a shorter board in hollow waves. You know, you can just kind of fit it right into the tube really easy. So it's gonna be kind of my little charger board now, you know. Got it on ice now. But anyway, so we've got my version of it. So that last video, I talked about 4 major changes that I was gonna do, because you look at them and they do kind of look like the same board. What we have here is the same. What I did, there's 5 changes. I actually made this 1 inch shorter. So this is, since it's, what I had was, I've been making polyester foam shapes, and I've been glassing it with epoxy. It's just, epoxy is so much more of a superior resin, and you can do that. You can glass a PU foam with epoxy resin, and it's way stronger, it lasts longer, has better flex. It's more expensive. It's probably about $40 or $50 per board more, but it's well worth it. So, but this is an EPS foam. This is what I've been doing for 30 years, but now I'm starting to do poly foam with epoxy glassing. But this, I actually still had a blank here that was EPS. So I made this board because I kind of wanted to make this, like, this wasn't so good in small waves, but I wanted to make this a good small wave board, and as well work good in overhead waves. So I tried the EPS on this shape, which is harder to shape. Styrofoam is actually a lot more difficult to shape than the PU foam. So I had to take my time on this to get everything right, and I was really happy how everything came out really close to this board. But with the few changes that I did, like I talked in the last video. So number 1, as you can see with the outline, I pulled the board in the center 1/2 inch. So that's a big difference. It's the same exact width in the tail from say like here down, and the same nose from here up. But you can see that this is a little straighter outline here, whereas this has a bit more curve here, what we call sometimes like a belly. So this tends to give you a little more stability when you have that width in the center, but it slows you down a little bit. The water doesn't flow through the shape as quick. So this is more hydrodynamic. It's got a little bit straighter. It's still got curve. You definitely still want some curve in this area for turning, but you can see the difference there, I'm sure, on the camera, especially when you pull back. You can see how this is a bit more parallel rail is what they call that when it's straighter. So yeah, so it's pulled in, so it's gonna have it has a little bit more drive down the line, a little more projection. Then the number two change was the rocker. It's actually, I was really happy how I got the whole board, the rocker measurements with my rocker bar, it's the same rocker, but it's got just a little bit more tail rocker in the very end. Say the last like 4 or 5 inches, it's got an extra 1/8 of an inch, maybe tiny bit more in the tail. So it's got just a little bit what we call kick here. So it's hard to tell by the eye, but the rocker bar doesn't lie. When I have my rocker bar sitting on it and you take the measurement, it's just got a little bit more lift in the tail. So I wanted it to go off the bottom and off the top a little quicker. With that little release in the tail, it's easier to like jam it. And then when you go vertical, it doesn't get stuck. And it's funny how that small of a change did make the difference, because I've been able to go up and down. Because I've been riding this board about a week and a half now. And we haven't had the best conditions lately. It's like right when I finished it, we got kind of like bad winds and kind of chunky conditions. And it's kind of harder to ride EPS boards when it's like that. But I've been riding them for so many years that I just know how to make them still work in that. But it was hard to really feel it out. But number one, right away, I felt more speed in it right away. I was like, well, this board is faster. With that change in the outline, and as well, I changed the concaves. I was talking in that last video how what I wanted to do is create more of a scooping single to double, and then create the double. The double goes up here. You can feel like that it's still got a double concave, but that's the difference on this Almeric, is it's got a V tail with deep double, and then you put a straight edge here, and it's like it doesn't scoop out. It doesn't have very much concave through here. So that's how I made it more of a small wave board, is I scooped the single through, and then has the double coming through here and running up. Like the Bobby Quad, it has the double running up forward, and that shoots the water through there even quicker. So that made it feel, definitely I felt the extra speed in small waves, because the water, what you're doing when you scoop this area out, when you shape the single concave, is it flattens the curve here. So the water rushes through there quicker and creates more lift and speed. That's why I felt like this board works so good. The Bobby Quad works so good in head high overhead waves, because you almost don't want a lot of a deep concave when you're surfing sort of bigger waves, overhead to double overhead or whatever. You want a little less lift in the board. You know, the wave has all the speed already. So this board, I designed it so it would work also good. And I actually, the last couple of days, I was riding 1 to 2 foot perfect little waves, and it was speedy and snappy. And with the EPS, it's a little lighter, so I was throwing it around a little bit quicker. So I'm pretty happy with that. Also, I took a little bit of thickness off the rail. I talked about in my last video too, where I have these rail guides I can show you right now. But this one's, I use my medium guide that fits perfectly on there. And this one's, it's just a little thicker. It's almost hard to notice, but if you grab them both like that, you can just tell there's just a little less foam there. And I actually took, since it's EPS, I took a whole 1/8 of an inch out of the center of the board. So this is 2.5 thick in the center right here. And then this one's 2 3/8, so it's a bit thinner, but the thickness got taken out with the scoop, because there's like an 1/8 of an inch more single concave taken out here. So it almost looks like the same thickness on the deck if you compare them. They look like the same volume, but that extra 1/8 of an inch is taken out with that single concave through here. So that's where that has come from. So my fin placement was a little bit different. It's pretty similar. I was actually pretty happy to see where the Bobby Quad, where they place the fins, and the angle where they actually, where the fins aim at the nose. Because when you are marking your fins, when the shaper marks the fins, they have to figure out how far from the tail these fins go, and how far from the tail these fins are going to go, and then how far from the rail they go, and then where they aim at the nose. You know, there's a spot down here where you got to mark where you want those fins to aim. So the back quads need to aim closer to the stringer, And then the front side fins aim a little bit off, so it probably touches about here where it's aiming. So that makes the board looser. The quad setup works looser when you aim these back ones closer to the nose. So there's a lot going on with the fins, but basically it's really similar to the bobby quad, but I moved my side fins up forward a little bit more. The bobby quad fins are a little bit back, whereas this is about a 1/4 inch forward. It's just something I like to do. It just makes it a little bit looser because the board's super fast, but you want to have it loose too. So, and yeah, 1 inch shorter. So this is a 5.5 and this is a 5.6. So those are the main changes. And I also modified the tail pad because I bought a tail pad the other day and I realized it was for this, it was the, there's this pro surfer who's a big aerial surfer, not Jack Robinson, but Jack Freestone. And it had this huge kick. The kick was literally like 5 inches high. So I just ground it down yesterday because I was feeling it on my bottom turns. I was feeling sometimes some drag because the water does come up over the rail. And this thing was so far up that I was feeling drag. And so I just shaved that thing down to like more of a reasonable kick for me because I'm not doing airs and stuff. But I definitely still want the tail kick. But it looks pretty cool too because it was black on top and I shaved it down and it has this cool funky design there. So something else I did custom on it. And then we'll talk we'll finish this video with talking about the fin setups I've been using for the quad. So we can maybe put this board down and we'll show the fins. I like to mix match a lot of fins. I've got a bunch of different fins, but this is basically what I'm doing with my quads right now. So basically what we have here is these are the 2 front side fins I've been rocking lately. These are customs that I made. I actually shape fins too. I started my career before I started shaping boards 30 years ago. I was a fin shaper, fin designer, fin shaper working for this guy, Curtis Hesselgrave, Curtis Race Fins, but I shaped fins for 5 years. So this is a custom set I made. And these are kind of mediums with what I like. This is my template too. It's a little bit wider base. And then it goes to a nice narrow tip. I like a nice thin tip because I'm pretty lightweight. And it's got a good flex. You can see the flex in the tips of the fins here. I like a little extra flex in the tips where it's real stiff in the base. It's got a nice flex in the tip. And they've actually got a little concave. You can see even the lines in these, I think. You can see the fiberglass lines where you see the design there. That's actually, there's a little bit of concave in the fin here. It's a vector scoop. So there's a little concave right there. So it's a double-sided foil. And you can see the lines on here too. Maybe if you zoom in there, you can see like all the fiberglass lines. So when you shape a fin, it's a flat fin and the lines are all one way. But once you start shaping, you want to have this perfect little design here. But I'm getting carried away there. So these fins actually are really good for when the waves are speedy, like hollow and faster waves. These are more hydrodynamic. They're thinner foil, so it's a thinner fin this way than say like for smaller waves. This, you can see the difference there. These fins right here are a little bit thicker, the thicker foil. They're well-shaped fins. I didn't make these, but you can see that these are more like a jet fighter wing, right? Whereas this is more like a commercial liner wing where it's a little thicker, but it's got the perfect foil. So in small waves, I want this because this fin's a little bit bigger. For small waves, actually it's the opposite. You want bigger side fins, front side fins. So these are my front side fins. So these are a little bit bigger than these. So I want, for small waves, bigger side fins and then a smaller back fin. So these two sets are my back quads right here. So you can see these are my customs that kind of go with this one. And you can see the difference in the sizing. These are a lot smaller. I've had these for like 6 years. I love these. I'll actually ride these, and if it's really, really small waves, like the last couple of days, I decided to ride the bigger front side fins with the smaller trailers. So it loosens it up, it makes it more skatey and there's less drag and it's easier to turn the tail. So you get drive off the bigger fin forward and then you get the looseness of the back fin. But if the way I started riding this board, because the waves were kind of chunky and kind of head high overhead, I had the smaller front side fins with the bigger back fin. So these are the Merricks, Al Merrick medium back side quad fin, sorry. So that's what I do. If I need a little bit more holding power, I mean, generally I only put these on if the waves are really small or if the waves are really perfect and clean. I love these because I want less resistance. Like when I surf the reef out here, I have my favorite wave out here is like this left reef break that's super fast and hollow, and it's perfect. I actually want less fin in a really clean, perfect fast wave. I want less resistance because you're just kind of using the rail of the board more instead of like driving for speed and making your own speed. So I love these in fast hollow waves and also like really small waves where I want to loosen up the tail. One thing I did notice was on this bobby quad, I really needed these a lot to loosen up the tail. But right away I noticed this board's looser with that extra tail rocker, and it's faster, so I felt like I'm feeling like these fins work better. These fins work better in this board in general ways, even small ways, because I feel like I was overpowering it with these little guys. So I've been actually mostly riding these mediums in the back, just because this board is so much like faster and looser. It's just got that extra little looseness. So I'm feeling like today it felt good to have these in it, but I still, even though waves were small, I felt like I was overpowering it a little bit. So yeah, that's a little bit about the fins, just to end the video off on that note right there. And yeah, I'm still kind of getting used to this board. I haven't had a good day, really good waves. I've had some really positive feelings on it. And like I said, it's faster and it's going vertical better. But with the EPS, I'm also realizing it's got that extra, I forgot how much extra float it has. And they sit up on top of the water a little bit more. So that's good in some ways, some certain waves. It feels really good. And then sometimes I'm going so fast that extra flotation, I got to really think about sinking the rail and just really focus on getting that rail down in the water. But in general, I'm really happy how this board came out. And it really does have a similar feel to that board. I came so close to it, but with those changes, I felt like I got what I wanted out of it. And that's a good feeling to be able to create that, you know. It's, I feel like I'm getting good control of my shaping over these last years, and it's pretty exciting to be able to create something like that and have the result come out the way I wanted it to. So anyways, hope you enjoyed that video, and there was a lot of information there, and yeah, and we'll do more of these soon. Pura vida and aloha.